once again. It's the end of the year. Of course, at the time of this release, it will be the 30th. So right near the end of the year. And of course, what we've started doing nearly every year now is we do the awards show, the coveted Beyond the Vibe Awards show. Normally, well, we did it last year, but it didn't quite happen this year. Normally, we do have a third person, but due to technical difficulties, they couldn't turn up. So we make do, don't we? So we are joined by Mr. Loyal Man himself. Once again, it's Lee Grin of the Rock Show. I debated putting a moustache on and a hat, but I do already have a moustache, so that didn't work. So it's just going to be me and Lee this year. But we have an incredible list that's perhaps one of the strongest that we've done. Obviously, we teased this in the top 10 of the year, but so many categories this year that I think 2 or 3 could win. Don't you?
Oh, it's been a really strong year for music, mate. I think, like we said when we were talking about the top 10 albums, you know, there was a couple of years where people were writing because of COVID or concentrating on that side of it. And it feels like not only now are we in a year where some really great albums out, but, you know, events are happening again. So live shows have happened in to support that. Some bands have gone down the EP route to release something sort of in the interim between the two. And yeah, there's been some great, strong tours, great, strong shows, great, strong singles. It's been a really good year, I think, mate.
For those that are joining us for the first time, if you're not aware, what we do that's different to any other award show, normally you'll see the person come up, they'll take the award, and then somebody inevitably in the crowd or at home will go, oh, it's rigged, somebody's decided it already, you know, they've done something. But the thing that we do is we decide exactly who's going to win each respective category right here, right now. So there's nothing to conceal, and you can see exactly how we reach the conclusion for each category. You can see how we decide, even if you don't necessarily agree. I mean, you can comment with your list of who you feel should win below, but you can see how we reach that conclusion. So we're going to jump straight into things now, and we're going to start with the ones to watch for the future. Of course, this is kind of the ones that we feel show a lot of promise for next year and maybe beyond that. So yes, we'll get straight into it. First up, we have Hannah Wicklund. Next, we have Muddy Brook. And finally, the hot one too. Of course, at the time of recording this, my last interview, Hannah Wicklund, I wanted to include her because, like, I have the benefit of kind of slightly seeing into the future because I was able to hear her album in advance, and I'm aware that a lot of outlets like Classic Rock and people like that are giving her album 9 out of 10. And of course, she's toured with Greta Van Fleet this year as well, so it's showing a lot of promise. I think there's something brewing with Hannah. You know, this time around, I feel like she's kind of on that upward trajectory. I mean, she's getting these opportunities now. This album's coming along that seems like it's going to be very well received. A lot of promise. Of course, your choice, Muddy Brook. Yeah. I hadn't heard of them before, so maybe you can enlighten us.
So I heard of them maybe 18 months, 2 years ago, I guess the first time I heard them. Real good, you know, 3-piece grunge outfit. Sounded brilliant. really enjoyed them. But I just feel like this year they've really kicked it up again. There were some great shows with Virgin Marys. They did a stint supporting Black Star Riders. And on some shows last summer. They've just they're working on their first full length debut, which is already getting quite a lot of momentum and stuff. So the singles they released, like ADHD, that I've played on the radio show, which always goes down an absolute stomp. It's a great track. And at the beginning of next year, they're out on the road with Wayward Sons as well. So they're getting exposed to like all these bigger audiences. There's a lot of chat I'm hearing when I'm out and about. And there's a lot of, from the Just Push Play side of things, there's a lot of people saying, you need to get Muddy Brick on at some point, mate. And, that's when I start to notice like, oh, so-and-so's getting noticed because, people are very obviously vocal with the bands that they want to see at shows. I'm the same, So yeah, I think next year will be a really, really strong year for them. I think there's been a lot of hard work this year between obviously they're working on their first debut. They've done a few EPs and which have been brilliant, but they're obviously building on that. They've got the album that's going to come out. The singles are already sounding really strong. And then like I say, they've got all these decent live opportunities. I mean, they did like a couple of, I think the Virgin Mary shows initially were supposed to be a kind of one-off or a couple of dates off. And then, when I interviewed Matt of Virgin Mary's, he was saying, they really enjoyed having them on the road. So they brought them back for these last few shows of the year. And so between the shows for the Virgin Marys and Black Star Riders, so just to sort of name a couple that they've been doing. And then they've been going out on their own right as well, obviously. Now they've got these shows coming up with Wayward Sons. I just think it'll be a really strong year and one I'll certainly be keeping an eye on them next year, definitely.
I mean, Wayward Sons, that's again, it feels like they're about to be opened up to this new audience. So I can see the thinking there. Finally, of course, we have the Hot 1-2. You mentioned them in your top 10 of the year. They got in over the likes of the Foo Fighters and stuff, and it was a bit of a surprise to me at the time. I hadn't heard of their new record yet at that period of time. I mean, they were at Just Push Play a few years back, weren't they?
Yeah, 2021.
They've got that connection. I mean, just to reiterate, you really rated that album, didn't you? Is it Suspiria? Superbia. There we go. Yes.
I even love the title. It's such fun. It's almost Virgin on Def Leppard, that title, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
It's a great record, man. I was listening to it again the other day. I don't know, Jim, and it's such a fiery record. And I said to you, like when we were talking in the top 10 album show, like it feels like album 3 or 4, and it's got that vibe about it. I remember seeing an interview once with Sammy Hagar when he was doing the Chickenfoot supergroup thing.
Yeah.
And their second album, Chickenfoot's second album, was called 3. And they said, why have you called it 3? He went, because no one likes the awkward second album, so we've just called it 3. And I love that. And I feel like the Hot 1-2, this one, they've almost debuted at 3 or 4. It's already feels like they've got that build up. And, the album's been well received. They've done some great shows this year. I would really love to see them, and I'm sure it'll happen next year. I'm sure they'll end up getting on it, but I think all they really need is like a really good, solid support tool to expose them to some people who haven't heard them before. But yeah, I mean, they've done some great shows of their own. They did a lot of festivals this summer. I know they're doing a lot of shows next year. When I was chatting to the boys, when we did the album launch show for them, they already mentioned that they had they had more shows lined up for next year than they already played this year. So, so that looks like it's going to be another strong year for them. So
another chock-a-block year. Of course, we've reached that point where we have to make that decision. I think it's kind of difficult already.
Yeah, it is.
Who are we kind of gravitating towards? Because, I mean, all of these have had varying degrees of promise and success. I mean, this is what we're kind of looking for in this category, that promise of being the next kind of hit, the next one to move on. Who are you thinking, personally?
It's tough.
I know it is already the first category, and I'm like, God.
I mean, when you interviewed Hannah, I was really happy to see an interview with her because I interviewed her a few years ago when she did the Bomb Through the Breeze album, or the album with Bomb Through the Breeze on it. Yeah. So I'm really excited for this album to come out. Muddy Brick, I love. The Hot 1-2 Boys, I love. It's really, really hard. Why do we do this to ourselves, right? For
me personally, just to try and maybe try and sway you in any direction, but I'm able to kind of see into the future.
Yeah.
There's something special about her album.
Yeah.
And it's really striking a chord. And one thing I will say that I don't usually comment about, but her video did far better than what I expected it to do. There was an instant interest.
Yeah.
And there was young people really kind of engaging and commenting and being like, oh, I'm really looking forward to this. I'm really kind of doing that. And it was interesting. It was like a whole new set of people. They were very young as well. So it seems like she's captured a particular crowd that's kind of it's like her own crowd, you know what I mean? Like they're of similar age, and it's interesting, in a day and age where nowadays you probably see like a range of ages and groups and whatever. But in particular, there was this young crowd. Maybe it's the Greta Van Fleet crowd. I'm not quite sure, but there was something brewing. So for me personally, I would edge towards Hannah Wickham for this year, for the ones to watch. But of course, you will get the decider because you're the guest, and we have to have some kind of decision there. So the pressure's on.
Pressure's on. I just think there's something so exciting about Muddy Brook right now.
Is that?
Yeah, and there's a build up there.
I mean, Wayward Sons next year. That's a
hell of a thought to them. And I feel like the Hot 1-2 boys are doing really well. And I feel like that path is already there for them. They just got to keep walking down it. All the hard work they've done this year with this album is a great record. Like I say, I put it above the Foo Fighters, man. You know what I mean? I'm not. I don't do that lightly. Hannah Wickham, I haven't had that pleasure of hearing that record yet, so it's difficult. You know what? It's your show, man, and I'm happy, and I love Hannah.
I'm not forcing you to go with Hannah.
You're right. Yeah, it's all right. It's all right.
I have a feeling that we're going to have a similar conversation to the conversation that we had about Don Martin.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, go and listen to this album." And you'll really enjoy it. And I feel that if you trust me on this one occasion, that I have a feeling, because it's January 12th, I think her album comes out. So at the time of recording this, it will literally be like only a couple of weeks away. Yeah. I have a feeling that you'll rave about this album.
You know me well enough, man, by now. Yeah. So I'm gonna trust you on this one. And we'll go ahead with it.
So the decision has been reached, as you can see. The one to watch for next year and beyond is Hannah Wickham. Moving on, this year we found that we usually have the best EP. But this year we were looking and we feel that the releases weren't as much. So we thought, right, okay. So we've done best EP stroke single. So people may wonder, single, is that one track? Well, the definition is that it can be 3 tracks and an EP is 4 to 6. So we felt that maybe if you're only 1 track short, we might include you. So the first nominee is a personal favourite of Lee Graham's. I knew he'd love this one. Is Blue Nation with Cold Nights. Technically a single, but they do have 3 songs on there.
If I need to come down from this height, I'll survive. If I need to settle down, I'll be fine for tonight. It's a cold, cold night.
The next one that we have is one that I wasn't familiar with until Lee mentioned them. A band called Quiver.
You can tell me what you want, 'cause I will never find a woman like you. She's the right kind of woman. Oh yeah, I'm the right kind of man. Oh yeah, she's the right kind of woman. No one feels forget.
Yes, so that is our 2 nominees for Best EP and Single. I heard Blue Nation's single thing that's come out is only a couple of weeks old, if that.
Yeah,
I think
only
it came out early December.
Yeah.
I love this acoustic feel that they've got going on. There was something about that. And it feels like they've taken a major step up. That's why I wanted to mention them, because they came so close last year to winning Best EP.
I did fight tooth and nail, but
You really went for it.
but like last year, their Echoes EP was
It was great.
It was my release of the year. You know, I said last year, you know, if Echoes had more tracks on it, it would have been my album of the year. Absolutely.
Yeah. It was a very strong one. Obviously, this year they've done a bit of a follow up. I know that they have plans for next year as well. But there was something about this kind of the production I felt was stronger on this particular release. I feel that the vocals were just kind of highlighted more. Of course, you know, they've always had strong vocals, but I just feel it was kind of more kind of front and center. Maybe with it being acoustic. Yeah, there was something about it for me. It was just like, this shows a lot of promise. And like it made me excited for what they're going to do next year. And I think that's what an EP or a single should do.
I think so. I think it should absolutely, like you say, tease you into that. Into the album. Like I say, I know they're working on, you know, recording new material. I'm not sure if that's going to be an EP or an album next year from the boys. I'm not sure what they're doing with that. But I know they're working on new material. I know they've got a lot of plans for next year. Come see them at Just Push Play.
Exactly. They're the first ever band, aren't they, to make a return the next year.
Yeah.
At Just Push Play. I mean, that's a heavy. That must be a big decision there that you went.
Yeah, it was. But as people will know, I put them on early because they should have been playing another festival. And locally, and we did it because obviously they were traveling quite a way, and you know the other festival that they were playing, you know, I know the guys over there, and it was all cool and everything's fine. Well, they could only give them an evening slot, so I was like, give them an early slot, and then they can do both and do 2 gigs in one day while they're down this sort of direction. And unfortunately, they had some logistical issues, and the festival got cancelled. Otherwise, I would have actually given them an evening slot. So that's kind of why I wanted to do it. And anyone who saw them early on just knows what reaction they got in the crowd was insane. Talk about, you know.
I had seen, I mean, I wasn't unfortunately available to be there, but I had seen that they had a massive reaction. I mean, that's earlier on in the day as well. So
they were like second band on.
Exactly. So not necessarily everybody would have arrived at that point.
Not by any means.
So to do that as well, our other nominee is Quiver, which you, of course, put forward to us. Why them in particular? What kind of really struck a chord for you with that EP?
Well, I got sent the first single off of it a while back, and you know, when I get me and you line up on a lot of tastes, mate. And when I get an EP or the single at a time, I should say, sorry, and you know, you'll get this as well with the show, and it'll be 4 fans of, and I get 4 fans of. This is me, right? I get 4 fans of, and it read Aerosmith, Rival Sons, Dirty Honey. I was like, okay, well, on paper, this is going to work for me very, very well.
Exactly.
But obviously, also because I'm a stubborn git, when someone says, if you love Rival Sons, Dirty Honey, and Aerosmith, you'll love these guys, there is a part of my brain that goes, they've got a lot to prove now, because there's 3 of my favourite bands. And they absolutely delivered with it. Absolutely delivered with it. I had the boys on the radio show. They were really cool. They're sort of based all over the shop, all over the globe. And yet they're really, Buckle Up. No, Sassy was the first single I got sent. And then, then they that was a standalone single. Then the EP came along with tracks such as All or Nothing and My Kind of Woman. And it was brilliant. I feel like this EP, similar to what I was just saying about Blue Nation, if it had more songs on it, this would have been my top 10 for the year show that we done. It's full of what I love. It's full of groove, full of soul, full of blues, bass rock, and it's just got something about it. And I think they're one to look for next year as well. Going back to the last category. So yeah, I had to put it up there, mate. It's a really solid EP.
Of course, out of these two in the category, we have to make a decision. For me, there's something special about that Blue Nation single. I have heard the Quiver EP or single, and it is very good. It shows a lot of promise, undoubtedly, and no discredit to them. But I feel that Blue Nation have taken a big step up. I really do. I think that it's better than their previous EP last year that didn't quite make the win. I know it's technically got a little bit less on it, but the quality I feel has taken a step up. I know that it's kind of this acoustic thing just to keep the vibe going till next year, but it's showing a lot of promise for next year, and they work so hard. I can see it. Like they're always posting, they're always gigging, they're always doing stuff, and I feel that there's something that's going to happen. I mean, they could very well have been in the previous category, I think.
Yeah.
For me, I'm going to go with Blue Nation. I don't know about you.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's the thing, isn't it? With Quiver, like you say, it shows a lot of promise, a lot of where they could go.
Yes.
And a lot of absolutely, for a first EP, first official release of 3-4 tracks, brilliant. And a good showcase. If you were at a gig somewhere and these guys were supporting Dirty Honey, say, at all, it's one where you'd absolutely go straight to straight to merch, go grab your EP, drive on the way home, you love it. Yeah. And you'd be waiting for that next step.
Yes, I think that's the difference for me with these two. I feel I'm waiting for the next thing from Quiver, whereas I do feel that Blue Nation are already taking that next step now.
Yeah,
I think we're seeing it happen. Have we reached our conclusion there?
I think we
right. So the band that so nearly won Best EP/Single last year has finally made it this year. A year later, our winner is Blue Nation with Cold Night. They've made it this year. So I know they commented and they seemed a bit disappointed last year. You've done it this year.
You've done it, boys.
Yes, we're there. Moving on. Our best live act, always an interesting one. I mean, this can vary greatly per year, particularly on who we've seen personally. So first up, we have the Winery Dogs. The Damn Truth. And Robert Plant, Saving Grace.
I was to say to you, baby, push, couldn't get much higher. Oh, so come on, baby, light my fire. Ooh, baby, light my fire.
For me, I mean, I mentioned the Winery Dogs in the top 10 of the year, and it was a bizarre thing because I went to go and see them before I heard their album start to finish.
Yeah.
I heard a little bit from their album, but not everything. And I saw them live, and then I came away from that evening, and I walked out of there, and I thought that's probably the highest level of musicianship I've ever seen. In my lifetime. Yeah, the bands that I've seen, I feel that they were, because I mean they are a super group in effect.
Absolutely.
It just felt like they were on another level entirely. I think a true sign of that is when you've got Richie Kotzen playing a solo, finishing the solo, and before the end of the song, people are applauding him. and I'm looking around the room, and there are some people that are just like open mouthed at this performance, and it's like, this is insane. Like, I mean, I've seen a lot of great bands, but it was that kind of thing of like, you're just stood there and you're like, wow, like this is another level. Like, it was just like watching pros just going for it, you know, like somebody at the highest possible level.
Yeah.
So I feel like I had to include them in this category this year with that. I mean, I've seen a lot of great acts, you know. I mean, Rival Sons are in there last year. Yeah. And I just found, if I'm looking at musicianship and just professionalism, I mean, they're at the top of the game. Up next, we have The Damn Truth.
Yeah.
Of course, a band that you put forward. I believe that they were in this nominee category last year as well. Obviously, they didn't quite make it last year, but they're here again.
Yep.
What's your reason for going with The Damn Truth? I mean, obviously, you've seen them again, hence why they're in this category.
The only band I saw twice, 2 days in a row this year as well.
2 days in a row.
Yeah, I saw them. They were over here. They were supporting Glenn Hughes on his Deep Purple anniversary set that he was doing. And whilst they were over here, they were then doing their own headline shows. So they did the Apex, where Hell Just Push Play. They were doing that with Glenn Hughes. And with that being literally 15 minutes in that direction, it would be very rude of me if I didn't go. And then they played Norwich the following night, which again is like 40 minutes away, something like that. And while they're over here, I really do believe these guys next time round won't be playing that level of venue. I think on their own headline shows, they'll be escalating from that and taking those steps up. So while they were over here and I had the opportunity to see them, you know, relatively locally, I was absolutely going to take that. And like I said in the post that I did, because people were going, you can see the same band 2 nights in a row.
Yes, people will think, how can you
know,
like, it's the same thing, surely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's because one was a support act and one was their own set. So, you know, Glenn Hughes, they played 45 minutes roughly, I guess. And then their own show, they're on stage for an hour and a half. So you get literally double the amount. But with that, obviously, I kind of described it, and it's a weird way to. The only analogy I could use was that the Glenn Hughes support set was like a trailer to the film.
Yes, yeah.
You know, you get a taste of it. You can kind of guess what it's all about roughly. But like any band, you see them at their own headline show, and they've got that extra time. They can show you, you know, other songs. They can, you know, support slots tend to be right. You've got 40 minutes. You've got half an hour. Go out and just hit it, just bang, 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 bang all the way through. Whereas, you know, your own headline shows, people are wanting to hear stuff from you. You can be a bit more playful. You can show those other textures that you might not get to showcase on a support slot. And it doesn't matter. It seemed to matter to me when I see them at a support slot, whether I see them at, you know, their own headline shows, festivals, they come away absolutely buzzing. And I just, from the moment they always walk out to Jefferson Airplane's White Rabbit. That's their sort of intro music. And they're not like intro music where it plays and then they come out. They literally come out and they're dancing and they're like, enjoying it and setting up and whatever. And even when that comes out now, I cannot think. And that is a classic song.
It is.
And I cannot hear that song without thinking, oh, The Damn Truth should be coming on. I should be looking at a stage, you know. And the impact they guys have live, they just take you to another level. So for, you know, the same reasons and more why what I said last year, I had to nominate them. They were just up there. And again, very, very happy that they'll be at Just Push Play next year. So
yes, I mean, for those that aren't aware, it'll be, is this one of your kind of first bands from overseas?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
First band outside of the UK.
Yeah, so that's a bit of a benchmark moment. I mean, there's a band coming from all the way over there. I mean, in Canada, I believe, aren't they?
Yeah, in Montreal, yeah.
Yeah, so a Canadian band. Always exciting. Our last one, a veteran of the industry, of course, Robert Plant with Saving Grace. A bizarre Blue Nation connection there, you know.
Yeah.
There's the drummer of Blue Nation, of course, plays in there. He's in there on drums. I mean, what a cool little connection. You finally went to go and see Robert Plant, didn't you?
Mate, that's a man I never thought I'd get to see live. I never thought that would happen. It's just, it's Planty. Any shows he does just sells out because it's Robert Plant. He's an absolute legend.
Yeah.
And then when I saw he was coming with this new project, Saving Grace, and that they were coming to Cambridge, so literally like an hour away. I said to Joe, like, because Joe hadn't seen him before either.
Yeah.
And we were both like, we have to try. Like, whether I'm there, like, whatever, I'm going to try with me and say, probably should admit to this is being recorded, but I was literally sat in my office, just like F5.
Got to.
But it was one of those moments you have to do it. And I've never been so excited in my life to receive a confirmation of you're going to. I couldn't remember the last time like you and me, we both love music, we both love going to sing shows. And, when I saw Rival Sons, when I saw The Damn Truth, and when I saw, other bands I've seen along the way this year, it's always been like, oh, great, I'm going to this is going to be cool. But like, with Planty, it was like on another level. It was, I'm going to get to see Robert Plant. I couldn't believe that was actually going to happen. And then he saw it, and, he was doing a lot of old folk covers and Americana stuff and a few solo stuff. I love Planty solo stuff. I do. And he threw in a few Zeppelin tracks, but he threw in the ones that you wouldn't necessarily expect to hear. He didn't do Ramble On or Whole Lot of Love or whatever he did, or Stairway or whatever he did. He did the Rain song, and he did, stuff like that. And it was just like to the point where the Rain, and he'd obviously reworked them because they're very much a kind of Americana-y kind of blues roots, very rootsy music kind of stuff that he's doing now with solo work. And Susie, who sings with him, who's Ollie of Blue Nation, who's on drums. Susie, who sings with Plant, taking co-lead vocals, says Ollie's other half.
Right.
And she has got the most amazing voice I've ever heard. She's incredible. And, like I say, there was a bit of a folky element to what they were doing. So there was different instruments to what you would expect a generic rock show. I've never been so taken by an accordion player.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, they were playing these really cool lines, and I was just like, and Joe's like, "What's up with you?" I was like, "I spent like 20 minutes watching an accordion player,
Yeah.
and I wasn't laughing. Like,
Yeah.
not sure how I feel about that, but and all the voices from for the other guys in the band, from Susie, from Robert, it was just insane. To a point where, like, I said to Joe, we've always said if a bit like the question you ask people if you could, tour with someone from the past. Me and Joe often say, if there was one band we could go watch from the past that we'd never get to see, it would always be Zeppelin for us.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's Planty, it's a solo show. But if that's the only time I get to see him, I can walk away a very, very happy man. I hope he does another tour with this. It's a great project. I'd personally would love to see him do original material because it was clearly, the chemistry was clearly there. And don't know if that's going to happen or not. Who knows? But I'd love to see it. But yeah, that's one of those gigs that stay with you for a lifetime, I guess.
Yes, I mean, I imagine that's just a thing, isn't it? Like he would just. He's like walking history at this point, isn't he?
Yeah. It's like saying you're going to go watch Hendrix or Freddie Mercury or something, it's just...
Yeah, I mean, you could just watch him for hours, I imagine. But, of course, we have to make a decision. I think this is a very tough one. I think any of these three, for different reasons, could win. I mean, I'm not even sure who we could go with here. Because they're three very different bands. And I mean, from different eras as well. I mean, you've got three different eras going on here. It's an interesting one. Oh my God. I mean, I feel that Robert Plant's perhaps won everything that he could imagine that he could win. So I don't think he would jump for joy if we chose him. I have a feeling he's not currently sat at home waiting for us to pick him.
Oh, yes, because I gave the Blue Nation boys to give Ollie a shout.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, just give him a shout. Yeah. And here he is now.
Here's Uncle Bob.
Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah, I mean, I feel that maybe with everything he's done before, he's won everything. You know, he's a walking legend, of course. But I don't know. I feel that this show, the way the show is, we do one from the past, one from the present, but we do always look to the future.
Absolutely.
Maybe we should do that. I don't know about you.
No, and I think also if it was, you know,
Original material, maybe.
If it was best gig of the year,
Yeah.
that would probably I couldn't argue with it. But as best live act, in terms of a live acts I've seen throughout the year
Yeah.
and in various stages.
It's a tough one, isn't it? Jesus. Have you ever seen the Winery Dogs? That's a question.
I saw them at Rambling Man Fair once. And this one, when they had that first thing where they released the first two albums in very quick succession, because they went on a little break before this third one, didn't they?
Yes.
But it was around, I think it was the second album release. I want to say it was like 2017, 2018 that I saw them. I didn't see them on this run. I was supposed to see them on this run of dates because they were playing Norwich and Scarlet Rebels were opening up for them. Obviously, I had Scarlet Rebels play at Just Push Play this year. So when they came back around, they were like, oh, you know, come down. But family stuff, and I didn't make it. So unfortunately. So had I seen them live,
it may have been,
it may well have been.
It's difficult. I mean, the damn truth, that's 2 nights running. Would you have put those 2 gigs in your top, I don't know, top 3 of the year? You've seen quite a few bands this year.
Yeah, I would. It's particularly the headline show.
Yeah.
I think we got Chan to to Tom and Leela and PY and Dave afterwards, after both shows, but we were chanting them after the show with Glenn Hughes. And don't get me wrong, it's Glenn Hughes like Robert Plant, you know what I mean? It's another little but I could have happily walked away. Don't get me wrong, Glenn Hughes was amazing and he was really great. And you know, I'm a bass player. I love Glenn Hughes. Yeah. But I could have happily walked out at the end of the Damn Truth set and got my money's worth. Like, they were that good.
It's difficult supporting Glenn Hughes as well. I mean, how do you open for somebody? Like, the crowd are there for Glenn Hughes.
And this is it. It was a Glenn Hughes crowd. There was I noticed, I clocked a couple of sort of Steelhouse t-shirts in the audience, so there would have been people there who had seen the Damn Truth before, of course, and there was people there I knew who themselves weren't a fan necessarily Glenn Hughes. Yeah. Or a big fan of Glenn Hughes, also they enjoyed the set, obviously. But the reason they were there was because the Damn Truth were playing and they wanted to watch the Damn Truth after seeing them at Steelhouse.
That's very interesting. Jesus. I mean, if you were to choose out of the Damn Truth and Robert Plant this year.
Oh, fuck.
I know. If I was like, you have to pick one, which is your lasting impression? Which is the one that you think that's going to stay with me? Not necessarily because it's Robert Plant, but like the quality of the gig. Which one's the one that's going to think that was...
If we're talking about a live act, rather than you say, seeing Robert Plant, seeing someone that you've waited so long to see, and taking that aside, that's difficult. If we're taking this live act rather than gig of your life, I would say the Damn Truth. I just don't think there's many people that touch them.
Interesting. Well, that's good enough for me. I mean, 2 nights in a row and not get bored. Yeah, that's a challenge in itself. And I think being able to support Glenn Hughes and have people that have turned up for them at a Glenn Hughes gig. I mean, that's something. And in a different country, you know, not home country kind of gig as well. That shows some clout. Another band that just missed out last year, but this year, our 2023 best live act is The Damn Truth. That was a difficult category.
Tough.
I mean,
round.
I think they would agree that's a hard category to decide.
Absolutely.
Moving on, and it's going to get harder. The best international band, of course, for the bands that are overseas, that have come over this year and just absolutely smashed it, or have just been very busy this year. First up, we have Rival Sons. Next, we have Greta Van Fleet. Finally, we have Blackstone Cherry. So, Rival Sons, of course, an anomaly of a year that they've had. I mean, 2 albums in a year, and I think the first time ever in our top 10s where we've had the same band but different albums from the same artist. I mean, how unusual is that? You know, I mean, that's something in itself. To release not 1 but 2 albums in a year, and to have 2 top quality albums. I mean, I was expecting to have 1 really great album and 1 album that you think, because you know, like 2 in a year, how can you stretch that material? You'd think on paper.
I think stereotypically previously with double albums or sister albums,
Exactly.
I can probably, of all the sort of double and sister albums that I've listened to in my life, I can probably count on one hand the ones that I think truly deserve to be a double album or sister albums where, like you say, rather than just 1 really strong album and 1 album where you go, well, you could have cut a lot of that out.
Yes. Very, very difficult with them. The next one, Greta Van Fleet. Of course, they released their album Starcatcher this year. The album that I feel, in my opinion, which I mentioned in the top 10, if you didn't know, I think that this is the one where they have found who they are. And we wanted to include them because of that. I feel that, you know, they've had a lot of flack over the years. A lot of people have said they sound like Led Zeppelin, or they sound like Rush, or they sound like somebody. But I think that this is the album where they're really starting to find, you know, when I think people are starting to say now, oh, it sounds like Greta Van Fleet. You know, there's influence there, but, you know,
Sounds like them.
Yeah, it sounds like them now. It's not somebody else. And I think that that's a big thing for them. I think they needed that. You know, it was too easy for people that kind of had this almost a vendetta against them for some reason to just kind of hit them with that, and they can't do it anymore. And I think that's great for them. Of course, they played what's that venue that's literally next to Wembley? It's like Wembley A something O or something. It's a massive arena.
Oh yeah, it's Wembley Arena rather than the stadium.
Yes, you know, so Wembley Arena, they played that. I mean, for me, I'm looking at this trajectory that they're on. I mean, I first saw them a few years ago in Birmingham, and in one of the O2 academies, the smallest room available. There was essentially a bar, and it wasn't even sold out. And that was about 3 or 4 years ago. So in 3 or 4 years, they've gone from a kind of a bar type venue that's not even sold out to arenas.
Pretty good going, isn't it?
I mean, that's a staggering climb in just 3 or 4 years. I mean, madness. You know, I think they're kind of one of the first bands that have just exploded on social media, and that's kind of taken them
all the way through.
to that. Yeah, like that. I remember that first single, Highway Tune, that came out and it just blew up. And then you think, well, is it going to be that kind of one-hit wonder thing? I mean, it's like people are finding them online. Will they turn up to a gig, or will it just kind of peter out? But they've built this whole thing around it. They've capitalized it. I mean, they went on a couple of years ago. I saw them on like Jimmy Kimmel and like big American primetime shows. And it's interesting seeing that, like, only a few years ago they were in essentially a bar.
It's crazy how their trajectory has gone. Like, I saw them on and they played upstairs to the Norwich Waterfront.
Yeah.
Which is 250 cap.
Yeah, it was somewhere around that for Birmingham. It was like 250, and it wasn't even sold out.
No, nor is Norwich. If there was 100 people in there,
yeah,
I'd be surprised, sort of thing. No, slaggy off, but there was
no. I think it just shows how fast they've gone, and in this day and age, that's really,
really rare.
Yeah, it's just so unheard of. So we felt that we had to kind of include them there. And finally, we have Blackstone Cherry. For me, this was a band that's kind of almost had like a second debut. They feel like they've come back. They've certainly, I mean, they admit it themselves. They say that they wanted to go back to kind of their roots. They wanted to go more towards those kind of first two albums with their new release, Screaming at the Sky. And I think they certainly did that. And, they were a band for me that maybe only slightly missed out on the prior category of Best Live Act. Because I saw them at, they did a series of kind of low-key UK shows, like deliberately. It was, I think they just, again, they wanted to go back to their roots of where things began for them. So they played a host of gigs in the UK that were kind of the ones where they were starting out when they began their journey, or kind of closest venue to that. So for those that are familiar with Nottingham, I went to go and see them at the Rescue Rooms of all places, which is just a 450 cap venue. There were people queuing outside from about 3:00 in the afternoon. It didn't open until 7:30.
4 hours in a queue.
4 hours in a queue. They say the British love to queue.
We do.
Apparently they do. But yeah, I mean, that was
you can spot Brits abroad, mate, on a queue, innit?
Unbelievable, yes. But they were great. I mean, they played as if it was, the Royal Albert Hall, which they did a few years ago. They really went for it. And they feel like a re-energized band again. Of course, Steve Jewell, who's come in on bass. He seems like he's just brought this kind of infectious energy to the band. And it's just given them like a whole new lease of life. You can see it, like you can see how happy they were on stage. And I find it interesting that even in like a 450 cap venue, Chris, the singer, Chris Robertson, you can see on his face, he's looking out at the crowd and he still looks surprised that people are singing his songs in a 450 cap venue. Like, and I don't know, he's just, there's this humble, endearing quality to them that you can't help but love them and get behind them. And they just went for it as if, they're playing arenas. So I feel that they have to at least be mentioned.
Absolutely.
Yes. So it is that time again where we have to somehow make a decision out of these. I mean, I feel that this may be the strongest year for Best International Band. I mean, any of these very strong contenders, in my view, for all different reasons. Again,
yeah.
Who would you kind of err towards if you're looking at those three?
Like you said, everyone's a very strong contender. For reasons similar with the live act one that we just discussed, but
yeah,
I just feel on balance It's got to have been Rival Sons' year, isn't it?
I mean, 2 albums in a year.
Two fantastic records.
Mm.
The shows that they did.
I mean, yet this is a point. You, of course, went to go and see them.
Yes. And I have seen Rival Sons every tour they've come over to the UK since the Pressure and Time record. You know, and then obviously festival appearances as well and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
you know, the irony being, you know, the third time that I saw Rival Sons for supporting Blackstone Cherry.
That's a weird connection.
Yeah. And I think that Blackstone Cherry have definitely had a stronger year. Like you said, it feels like they've come back fighting. The new record's great. Greta Van Fleet seem to be going to new heights. And the new record, again, is absolutely storming. But if you're going on, you know, Greta Van Fleet and Blackstone Cherry have both had great album, cool
Yeah.
tour.
Yeah.
Rival Sons have had 2 great albums.
Cool.
Great
tour. Yeah.
And like I said earlier, I'm not normally a fan of a double album.
No, neither am I.
And I know this isn't a double album and it's a sister record. And like you could, like when we discussed the albums in the top 10, you can absolutely enjoy these separately. There's a running theme, of course, but you could absolutely take these 2 separately.
Just to release 2 in a year.
But to release 2 albums in a year is tough.
Yeah.
And to release 2 albums, which just in my opinion, I'm sure people have other opinions in this, but in my opinion, are their 2 finest records in 1 year. And then, when I saw them on tour, the tour-wise, live-wise, they seem to have been on another level.
Yeah.
They've been kind of prolific with that. I saw Jay jamming with, I think it was Mike Portnoy actually on drums, being the Winery Dogs.
Yeah.
And Geezer Butler on bass. I can't remember who was playing guitar in it now, but he was at some jam show thing in the States last week doing a cover of Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath with Geezer Butler, which is
Wow. That's cool.
amazing. So it feels like they're really starting to get that sort of level up credibility, if you know what I mean. They've been, you know, pretty much every act you ask for
Oh
about
my God.
present picks Rival Sons.
There's a running joke that we have. It's kind of slightly faded away for a little bit, ironically, after J. Buchanan. Maybe he kind of topped it off with his one. But there was the running joke. Like, for me, I think that they're, you know, Jay and Scott and everybody, kind of musicians, if that makes sense. Like the ones that, you know, you ask a musician, who do you enjoy? Who's the band for you? And a lot of the time, you will hear Rival Sons mentioned at some point, which is a real testament. I think that there's this real kind of universal respect for them. And one of the things for me that I mention a lot, because I always feel that it's a thing that's important for a band to do when you have success, to not do more of the same.
Yeah, and they constantly expand.
And the Scott in particular, he mentioned in the interview that I did with him for Lightbringer that he said for every album they go into the studio and it's new equipment and it's new, like a new approach. Like, of course, it'll still sound like Rival Sons.
Yeah.
But they're always looking of like kind of what haven't we done yet, or what can we try that's different. And I really love that. I think that is kind of, that's the way to not get stale. You know, how can you be 9 albums deep and still be doing something fresh? I mean, you look at some of the greatest bands around, you know, some of them didn't even get to 9 albums.
No.
You know, and you could see with some acts that, you know, it kind of went a bit stale after 3 or 4. Usually around 3, you start to see it kind of, and maybe 4, it's a little bit samey.
Yeah.
But these guys, they keep finding new ways to kind of reinvent their sound. So it still sounds like Rival Sons, but it's like them, but refreshed.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think for for those reasons, I feel that they've kind of just edged it in a very difficult category again. So this year's best international band of 2023 is Rival Sons. Next up, we have the best UK band. Of course, those acts that have kind of done really well for themselves, whether that's playing live or releasing albums or doing whatever it is. So first up, we have The Answer. Next, we have Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons. And finally, we have the Virgin Marys. Of course, we mentioned the Virgin Marys last year. They won the best EP by like a fine margin last year. And this year they've done these kind of really cool reunion shows where they brought back Matt this year for the anniversary shows of King of Conflicts, of course, a very popular album from their catalogue. And I was looking at these shows. I thought, you know what, I might go to one of these. And then it just sold out within
went completely
minutes, if that. And then they were like, oh, okay, we'll make, another show. Oh, well, that sells out as well. I'll tell you what, we'll do one more. Oh, no, that's sold out. So, I mean, I didn't get to see them in the end.
I'm glad I saw them on that foot tour first time round, mate, because I didn't get looking either.
This is it. So it shows that, their popularity is still very much there. I mean, they're a busy band. Of course, they've been out in Europe as well, haven't they, this year?
Yeah, been out in doing support shows with Sisters of Mercy. They've just done a big run with them before I spoke to Ali when I was speaking to him. But yeah, they've done a big run of shows out there. They're coming back. They've just announced a big run of shows in UK and Europe with supporting Ugly Kid Joe next year. So yeah, that'd be good as well for them. Working on the full album as well.
Hopefully so. I mean, it feels like they're on a bit of a wave at the minute. I mean, their EP last year was a great EP. I really rate that one in particular. The next one, Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons. Of course, they released their first album with Joel on it, Kings of the Asylum. Great release. I think it's their strongest to date.
Absolutely. I think it's their finest album they've done to date, without doubt.
It is. I mean, I think in any other year it'd have been in my top 10. It was an extraordinarily difficult year to decide. And they're just a very hard-working band, aren't they? I mean, they're always touring. It seems like they're always busy doing something.
It's always something going on with them, isn't there? I joked when I spoke to Tyler earlier this year on the radio show, the year they headlined Just Push Play, I thought they had a busy year, but it seems like this year, I'm sure we had them headline last year, so following year just seems to be even more busy for them. Every time I sort of go on socials, it feels like they're announcing, another tour in Europe, or they're coming over to do some more shows across the UK, or they're announcing a festival run, or whatever. They're prolific. And I guess, Phil Campbell was always quite prolific in the touring with Motorhead, and I guess that ethos has come across. But, they're constantly on tours. They've just finished their run of UK shows in support to the Asylum, which looked like went absolutely stormingly well. It's Phil Campbell, you know what I mean? It's Phil Campbell.
I think that I feel that since Joel's come in, I think that they've been elevated to a whole new level. I feel that his vocals are just fantastic.
So strong on this album as well.
Oh man,
really fierce. Yeah. When they play Just Push Play, in fact, before that, a couple of months before Just Push Play when I saw them playing Rockstock. That was the first time I'd seen them with Joel. Seen them obviously before with Neil singing, but that was the first time I'd seen them with Joel. And it was that thing where like, how's it going to be with the new singer? All the rest of it, like you think that, how is it been when anyone gets replaced in the band? What's that dynamic going to be that's changed? He came out and it was just like, you're supposed to be there. That's who should be fronting you. Like, no disrespect to Neil. When Neil was there, I didn't think they were lacking anything at all. I really didn't. The first two albums I absolutely adore. But when, Neil left and Joel came to the ranks, it was like, whoa. It just came out and it was like a bang. Hit you with a sucker punch and didn't relent. And I think his voice works well, especially when they're throwing the Motorhead covers. I think that works particularly well, more so with Joel's voice than
it feels like a perfect fit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just feel like with the album, obviously this was the first showcasing on original material for Joel. And I think, like you said, it's their best record to date. When they're doing these songs live, it's fantastic. Saw them again earlier this year at Maidstone Festival, and it was incredible, absolutely brilliant. Schizophrenia hadn't been out that long at the time, maybe a couple of weeks, and when they got to doing Schizophrenia live, because it was in the summer before the album came out, whole of Moat Park were taking it away from him. It was a good set, yeah, definitely well worth a shout for sure.
Absolutely. Finally, we have a band that's kind of from my childhood, but they've come back. It's The Answer. Of course, they kicked off my series at the start of the year. And I think it was great to see them come back for a start. Of course, they had 7 years away, which I don't believe that they planned for 7 years, but they had 7 years away. And they've come out with a great album in Sundowners, which, as you first mentioned, it's like a second debut.
Yeah.
And it just feels like a lot of people, I don't know whether it just made them aware of the band again. Having that time away and then coming back, it felt like to me, a lot of people were like, oh my God, that band. I remember that band. They're a great band. It's like, it just reminded people again. I mean, I think that this album, it's almost like a companion piece to Rise, but like for today.
Yeah.
It gives me those same feelings that I get from Rise. It was that kind of wow factor again.
Absolutely.
And when it came out, I thought, this is going to be one of my top releases of the year. And it was in there, but I don't know how it made it into, I think it was about fifth. It was just such a strong year, but they're very much back on that kind of touring circuit. I think that they've kind of very interestingly integrated themselves with the kind of new wave of classic rock bands. And it's like this nice kind of crossover, and you're seeing a lot of bands that perhaps grew up watching them, and now they're kind of opening for them, which is kind of a nice full circle. What do you make of them coming back? I mean, you interviewed them.
Yeah, I mean, I've interviewed Cormac twice this year now. Once for the beginning, just before Sundowners came out, and then just before this run of dates that they've just finished off. Had Cormac come back on. I just think it's been a really stormy. I mean, I'm like you, mate. I absolutely loved. We've spoke about on the show when we were talking about that first sort of pre-wave of classic rock, if you like, new wave of classic rock, and they've absolutely always been one of my bands. They came at the right time for me. When I was rediscovering my love of hard rock and blues rock, and very much in that first wave. But The Answer, out of all those bands, were my band. Yeah. That was the band that I really hooked into. And, I remember seeing them in the Bloomsbury Ballroom Theatre on their Be What You Want tour. And it was like, well, if there was 100 people in that room, I might be exaggerating. And it was just, I didn't care. It was a proper stage against the, chest against the stage kind of scenario. And it was fantastic. And they you know, they played everything that they had released at the time, and people were still wanting more. And it was one of the most buzzy. I felt like, and that gig the same way I did watching bands now, like The Damn Truth, where you're like, there is something here. It's very special. It's that thing where you kind of want to keep it to yourself almost, but you know, you can't. And equally, you want to scream from the rooftops, like, why aren't you watching these guys? You know, why have you not gone to see so-and-so? And they were always my band. And then when Blood Brothers came out at the end of last year, that single, and that got sent to the radio show, I've never pressed quick play so quickly on a single coming in.
Same, yeah.
New Roadside band. You know, I think I was in the office at the time as well, and I just was like, right, headphones in, bang, right. I don't even care, like, if I get caught at work or whatever. And that was in the last job I was in, so I can say that. But you know, it was just one of those ones, and it was like, this is blinding,
right?
Like,
yeah,
really, really cool. And you know, then they obviously like you were talking about earlier with the Hannah Wickham thing, you know, I was just like yourself fortunate enough to hear Sundowners before it was released, because I was chatting to Cormac about it, and
you could feel it again, couldn't you? It was this kind of like,
I got that same feeling that I got when I first heard, you know, I think it was Never Too Late, the first song I heard, which came on free CD I got with Classic Rock.
Yeah. And
I put that on my first car that I had, my little Clay. I chucked it on in there on the way to college, and I was just like, well, hang on, what's this? Just used to chuck free CDs and then see what stuck, basically, you know. And I got that same feeling again. And not only have they done Sundowners, they've gone and done Wild Heart. They've done that standalone single that they've just released a couple of weeks ago, which again is brilliant. And it seems like, you know, those juices are flowing again. And long may it continue.
Yeah, I mean, they're one of the fastest bands to get a single in my award show. Well, in our award show. The last year they released their kind of comeback single, Blood Brother, and it immediately went into our nominees for the best single of the year. I mean, I'm not sure whether it won. I think it may have won.
I think it did win.
Which is something. I mean, the speed of that, it was right at the end of the year, and it was just straight in, and it was like bang. It just feels like they've come back. I mean, for me, I'm kind of erring towards The Answer.
Yeah,
you know, they've been away for a long time, and you can feel that there's a real buzz around them again. And I think, you know, they toured a lot this year, released a great album, and then followed it up with another single. I mean, you think, oh, maybe they're on the wind down, you know, go a bit quiet for a little bit, but no, they've released another single. And I think it's just a sign of, like, you know, we're here to stay this time around.
Yeah,
you know, we're not messing around. I don't know about you, but I mean, I'm definitely leaning towards The Answer for this one.
No, I'm with you, mate. Like, I'm balanced. You know, when, you know, like you say, Blood Brother came out, bang, and it just feels like it's another one for me. If we're talking about bands that have had really, really good years overall.
Yeah, like a big year, isn't it?
A real big, you know, it's a big comeback year for them. Like you say, they've done a few tours around Sundowners. They had all the festival appearances. And, you know, and when they were doing the festival shows, stereotypically, at a festival, you play all your hits, because you might not be in front of your fans necessarily. You're there for the festival crowd, which are, you know, normally there for the headline act, and, you know, there's always someone on the bill that you don't know. So you know, you're on for 45 minutes or whatever, you play your hits. But looking at the set lists that they were playing throughout the festivals that I saw pop up, very Sundowners heavy sets.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely what they should be doing. You know, they should absolutely be showcasing this record because it's brilliant. But you don't always get that. And I've certainly seen bands where they've brung out an album, and I've loved it as a fan of theirs, and you go see them at a festival and they're playing the same stuff they did at that festival 3-4 years ago. You go, well, why did you bother making the album? You're not going to showcase it. Are you not proud in it? Are you not happy with it? You know, what's going on? So for them to really showcase that, and I think people have picked up on that as well. That feeds into the energy of, like you say, we're staying around and this is what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll play Keep Believing, or we'll play Solace, or we'll play The New Horizon, or whatever. You know, they're going to slip into the set as well. But this is what we're showcasing now. This is who we are. And it felt like a second debut. this year, as well as the album. So no, I'm with you on it, mate.
Yes, so I think we've reached our conclusion. The best UK band of 2023 is The Answer. Always nice to see that one. I think, I don't know, when it's your kind of childhood band, I think it's cool to kind of see them back in full flow. Moving on, our next category, best breakthrough artist. So when we came up with this category a few years ago, we were looking at kind of maybe bands that are, or acts that have been around for a while, but they've kind of just broke through. Of course, the definition then, just breaking through and making some moves. And I think certainly this year we've got a few that have been around a while. So first up, we've got Don Martin.
What do you want? What do you need from me? And I say, what do you want?
Next up, we've got Florence Black. And finally, we've got a guy that I interviewed earlier on in the year, Anthony Gomes.
Feel the power in my soul, song flows. Will I ride into town all night? Painted horse, my painted horse.
So Don Martin, of course, your love affair has begun with him since our interview.
Shush, my wife's only upstairs.
I know, yeah. You know, he's kind of, obviously we know that he's been around for a while now. He'd been playing gigs and stuff in Ireland for a good period, but in these last few years, you know, particularly the album that is released this year and then the previous year, Savage Life as well. Those two, I think, have really kind of pushed him up, and I feel that he's definitely starting to break through. I mean, he played that Joe Bonamassa cruise, didn't he, recently?
Yeah, man.
Of course, you listen to Buried in the Hail, his latest album. You just kind of
Absolutely fell in love with that record.
yeah, you just I remember the response. You were like, "Fucking hell, this is great!" I mean, there was just a real enthusiasm about it. I mean, you went to go and see him live as well, didn't you?
I went to see him at Stowmarket, just up the road here, at the John Peel Centre, and it's really bizarre because that. I mean, I'm going to give a shout out to that venue because they're brilliant. No, they're just up the road, and they're really starting to get some really good rising acts coming through the John Peel Centre. So Brave Rival played there not so long ago, and then Don Martin there. But yeah, that's the first time I've been over there for a while, and yeah, just watching those songs live, and he's got that timbre and that tone about his voice where really in an ideal world I would have been sat in some kind of folk Celtic pub drinking Guinness and whiskey and just sitting there. Probably would have been nice to be transported to my days when I still smoked with a cigarette and just you know, it's got that vibe about him, and it's just want to sit there and chill and just soak up. I mean, he could have been in the corner of some Irish bar somewhere and then just incredible. But that man's just got so much power and so much range in his voice and so much emotion. He's someone who plays, you know, from here, and you really feel that in a live performance as well. And you can't contain a man like that to a little Irish bar or to a pub, as much as it would be the sort of the romantic notion of that is quite nice. But yeah, I can't wait. I know he's planning to work on new material. When I spoke to him for the radio show, he was saying that, you know, he had some shows in Europe building up to Christmas. He'd obviously, like a lot of people, have a bit of time off for Christmas. And then he was already looking for January and February. for shows, and then early part of next year to start working on the next one. So, I can't wait to see what. I mean, it's. Well, I didn't think Rival Sons could follow Pressure and Time, and here we are talking, 8 albums down the line about Darkfire and Lightbringer. But I'll put it this way, I'm very excited to see where he goes with the next project. Because for me, Buried in the Hell, I mean, I put it
It's
above.
another level, isn't it? It's a major step up from his previous release.
Really, I mean,
And I think that,
production on it
A
is
Savage,
amazing.
I think A Savage Life was a great album.
Great record, yeah.
Yeah, but then he's kind of followed it up, and everything has gone up 3 or 4 tiers, I think. Another level. And there's also this kind of story around him that I think is the quintessential, if you want somebody to be a breakthrough artist that's perhaps a little bit later in their career, or somebody that's really worked hard for it, I think he's a perfect example. He talked about, in the interview I did with him, he talked about, he had a difficult kind of time and a difficult period, of getting through. He was playing in essentially dive bars and having to wrestle his guitar back from people and crazy scenarios. And to go from that to doing what he's doing now, and he's absolutely smashing it currently.
Oh, absolutely, it is, yeah.
It's great to see. Florence Black, of course, a band that's been very, very busy this year.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like the last couple of years for Florence Black that they've not stopped. They've not calmed down. Shortly after the sort of tail end of, I guess, the beginning of 2022, really, they started doing those big shows in Europe when they were supporting all those acts that they were doing out there and doing arena shows. And, it's just insane.
Arenas,
Full on arena, you can see people absolutely, and quite rightly, absolutely loving it. And, I know they've just pushed back the release of their second album because they've got something in the pipeline, but it's obviously, whatever it is, it's obviously worth doing that for. But the anticipation on that record is already, you could see it when they had to do that, when they had to pull, and, they've obviously done it with good reason. They wouldn't do it without. But there's that difference between you get someone having, it's just had to change dates, especially a lot in recent years with the way vinyl gets pressed, and they want it to all line up, so it's been delays that way. But you could tell it was more than just I was looking forward to getting that Friday.
Yeah.
It was what?
Yeah.
You could feel that kind of, not anger, but passion of, I've been waiting for this record, and you're going to make me, it's getting pushed back again. And the singles that they're releasing off this record, it just feels like a real step up.
Yeah.
I mean, the debut album was fantastic. The EPs were great. The debut that they released the other year was absolutely brilliant. And obviously, I haven't heard the new album as a whole yet, but
they've released quite a few singles, so we get a good idea of
and it just
what's
seems
coming.
like a real step up in terms of playing, in terms of songwriting, in terms of vocals, in terms of production. Everything just seems like a real step up for the boys.
Finally, we have an artist that I was made aware of just a few months back, earlier on in the year, Anthony Gomes. A guy that I feel, again, is another prime example of somebody that is a quintessential breakthrough. This guy has been going since the 90s.
What?
Yeah, he's been doing this since the 90s. He was in his early 20s, and he's been working for quite literally decades. He's released, I can't remember how many albums he's released now, but he's released quite a few albums. And this recent one, High Voltage Blues, which has guested Billy Sheehan and Ray Luzier.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, is it unbelievable?
What a rhythm section.
Yeah.
Ray Luzier, corner.
I mean, to come out with that, I mean, you think, That's pretty good going.
I would have loved to have been in the sort of, email exchange, telephone, whatever, however that got organised.
Oh yeah, but in a nutshell, the record label that he's been signed up to, again, he worked so hard to get to this point. I believe it's Rat Pack Records. They put it to him. They're basically like, "Would you like to do this album with Billy Sheehan?" And it's like, well, yes.
Yeah. Would you like to have one of the greatest bass players of all time on your record?
And play your songs that you've written.
Written.
Unbelievable. And you think all of that, you think, well, it can't get any better, but it did. I mean, he's just announced now that he's been in the Billboard Blues Rock charts for 12 months. He released that album September last year, and 12 months later, he's in the end of the year charts for 2023.
Dang.
To remain in the top 10, he's not dropped below 10. Just as you think he's dropping off, you can see it. It's just starting to go down the tables. He comes back up again. And he climbs back up. He's been down at 10, and you think, oh, maybe the run's finally coming to an end after, 11 months. And no, he goes back up to 6 again. And it's, and when he first came in and went to number 1. Incredible stuff. Yeah, for me, a real thing is, he's a very humble guy.
Yeah.
Very real guy. Very, really cool. I mean, he won't mention this because, we don't usually kind of talk about after show recordings and stuff, but I will say it because, he won't go around and say it. But usually when I do interviews with guests, sometimes, they're busy people. They've got to go off and do other things. I get that. That's how the thing works. But Anthony, he had a flight that day to go and start a gig and go and play a series of gigs. And he was still talking to me about 45 minutes later after the recording.
Wow.
He was just chatting. We were just chatting. We were talking about like Black Sabbath and different things. We were just talking. And I think that that's just a real testament to who he is as a person. He wasn't looking for, it wasn't like, oh, you promoted my record, thanks very much and good night. It wasn't none of that. He was just a very genuine guy. And I think, he works really hard. And I wanted to mention him in Breakthrough. I mean, 12 months.
That is insane.
I mean, I don't know whether that's some kind of record.
It's got to be, surely, isn't it?
I mean, to be that long, he's virtually an independent artist, and he's been around since the 90s. I mean, I know he's had a couple of number ones for a brief period. Where they come in, they get a number one, does quite well, and then it kind of fades away and drops away. Because I mean, how can you compete against the Joe Bonamasses of the world? Yeah. But I mean, he's survived Bonamassa's releases. He's survived all of these stuff, and
that's insane.
There he is still. Yeah. Of course, we have to somehow make a decision here out of all of these. I mean, I think again, all of these have some kind of different reasons and very strong reasons. For me, I feel that we're somewhere between Don Martin and Anthony Gomes, because as much as I love Florence Black, I think their year is going to be next year.
Yeah, with the new
that they've got Bed of Nails coming out. I think that's going to be a great album. It seems like it's going to be a great album, but I think if I'm looking at this year, I'm seeing Don Martin's doing a lot, and I'm seeing Anthony Gomes a year later is still somehow, he's touring, gigging, and he's still in the charts. I feel it's between these two guys. I really do. It's Canada versus Ireland. Who are we thinking? It's tough, isn't it?
It's tough between those two. I mean, you cannot argue.
I don't. My heart doesn't want to choose one of them, but we have to. It's really difficult. I mean, I love both of these artists.
I And both artists that were brought to my attention through you this year, mate.
It's a very difficult one. Who are you kind of erring towards, in your view?
I'm erring towards Don Martin because he has been a real discovery for me this year. Anthony Gomez is someone I'm really looking into now.
Yeah.
I don't think I've had the chance to delve into him as much.
He's got an interesting catalogue. I believe it's somewhere around 20 odd albums he's released.
Wow.
And he's been doing it.
You cannot argue with the last album. The last album they released was fantastic, and that I have delved into quite a bit.
I think that there's an interesting thing with him because it's like decades later.
Yeah,
and here he is. He's getting his kind of moment in the sun, and it just feels great. Like there's something about that.
There is, and you can't argue with a year in the charts.
It's a year in the charts, man. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I love Don Martin, but I'm looking at that year in the charts, and I'm thinking, how can most art? I mean, I would be interested. I mean, people can comment below. I'd be interested to know what is the record for staying in.
Yeah, I want to know that.
In for long for that slide. Yeah, has he broke the record or has he got close to it?
It's got to be a record, hasn't it? A year? It's got to be, surely.
So he'll have been in 2022's end of year charts, and he'll be in 2023's end of year charts.
That's I think we got to give him for that alone, haven't we?
You think?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, we'll do it. We're going for it. I think due to the possibly a record-breaking year, maybe he's going to have his year next year. I feel that there's something. He's right on the precipice.
Yeah.
Maybe if he gets a number one, maybe that could be the factor. But I think for this year, our 2023 breakthrough artist. That's been kind of decades in the making is Anthony Gomes.
Hey.
I'm sure we'll hear a cheer from his fans out there. Moving on, our best solo artist, always an interesting one. Of course, everything's on them. A solo artist is always difficult. First up, we have Jared James Nichols. Next up, we've got Don Martin. And we have another familiar face. We have Anthony Gomes. These two going head to head again. Of course, I saw Jared James Nichols supporting the Winery Dogs.
Oh yeah.
Interesting show. I mean, it was a real kind of tight gig. You kind of in and out. But it gave you a taster of what his ability is. I mean, I think his album was a great representation of what he can do. Had a great release this year. I think it's his best album.
I'd agree with it.
He gives me, I don't know, like maybe if Zakk Wylde was slightly more bluesy. I get that kind of feel. I know he's good friends with him. Don Martin, of course, we're getting a bit of Groundhog Day scenario here. We've just spoke about him. He has had a big year. But as well as Anthony Gomes, he's had a massive year. I mean, I'm looking at these three, and immediately, as much as I love Jared James Nichols, I feel this could be between Dom and Anthony, because these two have had a massive year, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. And like you say, Jared James Nichols' self-titled album that came out
Great album.
really early this year as well, wasn't it?
It was like right near the beginning of the year, I believe. It was kind of maybe the end of January, early February, if that.
It was that one where, like, within the first couple of months, I was like, the answer. And because obviously I always got it in my mind that we do our top albums of the year show. So by January, February, I'm like, right, okay, so that's my top two already then with Jared James Nichols and the answer. And it was a great record from Jared. Absolutely storming record.
Really great stuff.
Yeah, I think it really showcased his live sound a lot more than the others had previously.
I feel that Jared's got a lot to come. I think that he's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. But I feel that in terms of best solo art, I mean, maybe next year he might be in a best breakthrough.
Yeah.
I think he's really coming on. We wanted to throw him in, I think, because he's had a great album. That's in my view, I think it's miles above anything he's done today. I think it's a real great reflection of him. But I feel if I'm looking at kind of a complete package to be the best solo artist, I think you've got to have it all, haven't you? And I'm really torn between Dom and Anthony Gomes. I think that these two are just neck and neck in my view.
I think if I'm going for solo artist...
I mean, that's the point. He does play on his own quite...
Yeah. That's
like literally on his own.
I mean, if we're going solo artist and both Jared and Anthony have
bands
with them, and let's be honest, Anthony's got Ray Luzier and Billy Sheehan. Does feel like he has somewhat of an advantage.
Slight advantage there, yeah.
It's not a bad rhythm section.
Yeah.
What a fucking power trio. Jesus Christ. And that is nitpicking, I know, by saying it's solo artist, and then so you got.
We've got
every solo artist has a backing band,
I mean, if you're gonna have a backing band on an album,
yeah, why not have Billy Sheehan and Ray?
It's like that old Carlsberg advert, isn't it? It's like if you can have the best backing band in the world, this would be it. I mean, I know what you mean, though. I can see this. The Dom is kind of like, he does acoustic sections, doesn't he, on his shows, and he'll just be on his own.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the quintessential solo artist, isn't it?
Yeah, and he's done his... Well, I mean, when I saw him, he did have a backing band. He did have a power trio when I saw him. But equally, he has gone out on his own, just him and his guitars, and done tours that way as well. I just think, for me...
If you're going to say solo...
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
And with the record as well, it is...
And it's very Don Martin.
Yeah,
like it's not Don Martin and such and such and such and such.
No.
I think we're going to have to do it. I think a very, very tough one. I think that it's possibly the most that we've had to split hairs for this category. The best solo artist of 2023 is Don Martin.
Hey.
Moving on, we're nearly at the end of the road, but we do have one more before we get to the highly anticipated album, the best album. It's of course the best single from an album. Yeah. Of course, a band, when you're going to promote an album, you've got to put a single out there that really makes a stamp, and we're looking to see which one's the best. Our nominees are the Winery Dogs with Stars. Dirty Honey with Won't Take Me Alive. And that familiar face again, it's Don Martin with Daylight I Will Find. We may as well go back in with Don Martin. Daylight I Will Find. I mean, I believe that's one of your suggestions there. It was in your rotation a lot.
Yeah, it was one where when we went for like talking about singles, I kind of went back to, statistics and that. And there was one where, like you say, following your interview with him earlier this year and the discussion we'd had, and you were saying, Lee, I think you really like this guy. You should definitely go check him out. And I went back and heard Savage Life and tracks like 12 Gauge and all that kind of thing that's on there. Really enjoying that. And then not too long after we spoke, I got sent Unhinged, the first single off of Buried in the Hell. And like, oh, this is really cool. Really enjoying this. And then, then Daylight I Will Find came out thereafter. And I was kind of conscious because I try to mix things up on my show. I don't want to be just like a jukebox. I don't want to be a compilation album that's the same thing every Friday and all the rest of it. But because I was enjoying it so much and something else came in, like, I don't know, Troy Redford might come out with a single or a tour date, so I'd play some Troy. And then I'd go, oh, that would, a bit of Dumb after Troy would be nice. I'll put that in there. Yeah. That would go nice. Or, I'll play a bit of Jared James Nichols. All right, oh yeah, I'll put in. Or even like I ended up, someone requested Rival Sons Shooting Stars. And I was like, yeah, that works. What's cool and bluesy and acousticy? Oh, more Don Martin. Yeah, that they are. And then I looked at my playlist once and I realized I'd played it like 4, possibly 6 weeks in a row or something. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to have to leave that one for a bit.
Yeah.
Not because I wanted to, but just because I was conscious, like, I'm not sure I can get away with playing it every week. Someone's going to notice this eventually, and it was purely just because I really enjoyed it, It was, if we were putting on what is your song of the year?
Yeah.
Not album necessarily, but if that was your song which really grabbed you, that's it. That's it for me.
One for me that really kind of live and absolutely knocked my socks off. I mean, it takes a lot for me to go wow at this point. But the Winery Dogs with Stars.
That is a fantastic track, to be fair.
There's something extraordinary. I think again, if I want to sum up that band in a song, if I want to, if somebody goes, what would I expect from them live, in particular? I think that just encapsulates everything that they are. There's just everything there, but in particular, there's that solo section from Richie Kotzen. It's something else. I looked at the comments section for that, and there was people commenting going, that's one of the best solos I've ever heard. And people going like, Richie, what an underrated guitarist. Like, oh, wow, like this guy's amazing. Like some people going, who the hell's this? Like he's like mad guitarist. And there was this, it's that song in particular for me that really grabbed me on the album. It's that, like, I think it just really elevated everything they are. I mean, it was the highlight in their show. That solo in that song is the one that made the crowd applause. And it is, yeah, it's. I think in this day and age, it's very difficult to do a solo that sounds completely original and completely different. Without getting compared to somebody or something. But I heard that, and it's just quintessential Richie Kotzen. It sounds, like if I can close my eyes, I know exactly who it is straight away. But it's just so intricate. Like, I looked at how he was doing this, and I'm just thinking, like, there's not many people that could play this. No. It's just such a high level. I mean, you look at Portnoy on the drums, and of course, Billy Sheehan as well.
Yeah,
and they're just all
absolutely at the top of their game, aren't they? I mean, they are.
Yeah, I mean that single in particular, it feels like it's just a showcase for all three of them. So I feel I have to kind of at least include it. Finally, we have Dirty Honey with Won't Take Me Alive, of course, one that you put forward. I mean, we know that people that are familiar out there, and they know that you're a big Dirty Honey fan.
Yeah, I mean, it was one where, again, another one where I realised I kept playing it, and not through like just trying to squeeze it in necessarily. It just kept flowing. It just felt right, and seeing them right at the beginning of the year, when they came over to the UK was outstanding. They've just announced obviously running shows for next year. And yeah, they're a band I've been looking for a while, as we both have sort of discussed on them before. And when, they're working on the second album, and brilliant, can't wait for this. And yeah, when that came out, they've always reminded me of a they've definitely got a flavour of Aerosmith about them in this.
Absolutely, yeah.
And even down to the intro in this, Mark's tongue roll is so weird. It's like Steven Tyler at the beginning of Day Looks Like a Lady, it's that tongue roll thing. And just hearing bits like that and nod to it, and the riff on it is absolutely funky as hell, it's just a killer riff. And it was just, as soon as that riff kicked in, it was like, I've got to play this. And to the point where, like, I always try to mix up what song I always, the show tends to be a new song I'll try and open with if I can, if it's going to write. And it's that thing where you're always trying to set up a mood for your show. So if I'm, interviewing a band and they're on the heavier side, my show will naturally be heavier. And all the rest of it. But as soon as I heard that, I was like, I know the song only came out this week, and I think it only come out about 2 days, officially 2 days before the radio show was getting played. And I'm like, I've got to play. That's got to be the opener. There isn't a song that I've got to play in this week that I think would be a better opener to the show this week. And to the point, within 30 seconds of the show, the intro coming on, the amount of messages I got from people who knew me going, and people messaging to the show going, is that a new Dirty Honey track? Like, instantly. And to me, that's just a sign of a good song. If you can already have that trademark stamp on it from 30 seconds in, especially with a new band who are still making their mark and still working their way up the ladder, and obviously they've done really well. They support Rival Sons, they've got a great sponsor Download, their live shows have been really well, and they're definitely climbing up. I'm saying they've not achieved anything, because of course they have, but they're still they're
on the up, aren't they?
Yeah, they're still on the up. They're only second album in, and they're still making an impact. So to already have that trademark about you, which for a song that was quite different to their first album still, it was a lot funkier, it was a lot more groovy, it wasn't as straight up 70s hard rock influence, it wasn't quite straightforward as such. It was going on a slight tangent to it, but I like that about it. To have that, so that I'm getting a dozen or so messages coming in within the first 30 seconds saying, is that a new Dirty Honey track? I was like, that's pretty cool. I just think it's a great song, and I think it was an absolute one that made me get really excited for the album too.
Of course, we have to somehow pick one of out of these three. It's very difficult,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I mean, I think Dom's been very dominant. I think he's kind of almost been like the Troy Redfern of this year's award show. He's kind of turned up a few times here. I'm looking at Dom's album as a whole, though. I'm thinking, he's it feels like a whole. Like I couldn't listen. I mean, as much as a great single it is, I couldn't just listen to that single. I'd like to kind of sit down and have the whole.
Oh, it's actually an album, like you said, a perfect Sunday album. Like you would just want to sit and soak it up. Yeah, no, I would agree with you on that one.
I feel it could be between Winery Dogs and Dirty Honey. I think,
Yeah.
like, I love Dirty Honey.
But you can't argue with Stars.
But well, I'm looking here and I'm thinking, in terms of their own respective catalogues, I'm thinking the Stars for Winery Dogs is perhaps one of the strongest songs they've got in their catalogue. It was certainly a central point of their live show from their last tour. It was the thing that people were walking away and talking about at the end of the night.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at Dirty Honey's single, and as much as it's very good and I really enjoy it, I don't think it's the best that they've got in their catalogue. And maybe we shouldn't have to go to this length to decide an album, best album single, but I don't, like I'm looking at in a live show, maybe they'd start a show with this. Whereas the Winery Dogs with Stars, it was right toward. It was kind of. It wasn't the end of the show, but it was right near those kind of last three songs.
Build up to that sort of big crescendo.
Yeah, this was kind of I believe the one before the encore. So they felt that it was one of the best that we've got, and for that reason, for me, I'm edging towards them, and also looking at the comments from people going, like this is like one of the best solos I've ever seen, and this is the best of whatever it is, whatever comment. Like there's a lot of people that seem gobsmacked by it, and I don't know whether you can stun people these days. Because they've seen so much, or there's so much in the catalogue of, so many amazing bands that have been in throughout the years. So I think to be able to do that, but with one song, is something.
I think we've got to Winery Dogs here.
So the best single from an album release this year is the Winery Dogs with Stars. I think the first supergroup that we've had win this category. Moving on, the final category, the one that everybody's been waiting for, and I think that this could be the hardest decision that we'll ever have to make on any of our shows. It's the best album. So, of course, we did our own personal choices for top 10 albums of the year, but we now have to somehow make a decision on what is the one that we would pick for the best album, Beyond the Vibes best album of the year. So first up, we have Rival Sons with Dark Fighter.
Rapture, sing it loud, I do believe I'm becoming what I'm meant to be.
Second up, we've got Don Martin. He's there again with Buried in the Hail. And finally, we have, for the first time ever, and maybe the only time, who knows, we have Rival Sons again, but with Lightbringer. Very unusual circumstance to where one band has got in twice, but because they are two separate releases, we have to have them separately. Interestingly, in our top 10 of the year, I'm sure people will have seen it by now, but I went with Darkfighter as my number one choice, my personal choice, and you went with Lightbringer.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting anomaly, but of course you absolutely rave about Don Martin's Buried in the Hail.
It came out and knocked me out of the park, like I said earlier in the show, and what we said on the top 10 album show. It was, Unhinged came out, couldn't stop playing that. I just mentioned that I couldn't stop playing Buried in the Hail.
Yeah,
same with Belfast Blues, and I mean, I said in the album show, his cover of Patsy Cline's Crazy was so good, and he had put his stamp on it so much so that, that's a classic song, and not a classic rock song. That's a classic song of all time. And I didn't even realize it was that until I got to the chorus. Because it had been, for want of a better term, kicked around, beaten up and thrown out the door, so to speak, really put his own stamp on it. And it was fantastic. And it's still an album that it's becoming my album that I keep going back to. If I'm in the car and it's like, what am I putting on?
The go-to.
It's that go-to thing of, well, Don Martin. And then it seems to be an album which, again, I guess, which flowed into the radio show, like we were saying earlier with the single, of being like, I'll play some Troy, I'll play this, play that. It comes back to, like, you get a vibe with stuff, and, we were on, like, long car journeys with it, and going over to Cornwall or whatever, but driving back down that way, and then it was like, oh, cool, so, all right, I've had some Gary Moore on now. Oh, well, Don Martin can go in there, or we've had some Rival Sons on. Yeah, we can chop Don Martin, and after that, it just seemed to keep coming back round, and it's just a stunning release. And I think on any other year, on the album show that we did, that would have been my number one for this year. It's just such a strong record, and it was so good that I now have to message you, like I said on the top. Yeah, thanks, Ryan.
I just think it's absolutely ridiculous that it is somehow not the, like in any other year that we've done this probably would have won Best Album, Yeah, easy. I think it'd have been perhaps the dominant album. But then Rival Sons come along
and release
two albums that are outrageous. And I feel that, in particular, we both chose. I went with Darkfighter, you went with Lightbringer. So I do feel that perhaps the fair thing to do would be to put those as the two potential options. As much as Don Martin is amazing and he's done this incredible album, and he's also, he's earlier in his career as well, so he'll no doubt be back. And it would not shock me at all if he wins in a future year. But I feel that this is the Rival Son year, isn't it? It just feels the year of Rival Sons. It's the dominant year. I don't know what it is, but it's like they've almost teed themselves up for this year. It's like trying to pick your favorite child, I imagine, if you have a kid out there. It's, I love both of these releases. They're very much kind of like the brother and sister album as well, so there's that connection. For me personally, I edged originally towards Darkfighter, purely because there's a piece of me that likes those kind of heavier, darker elements. and I feel that there's a song in particular, like if we're splitting hairs, if we're being like really looking deeply at these two releases, that song Dark Side,
Yeah.
it's just such a powerful, real, deep and bold song to even close your album with, you know, like to finish with that is a brave thing to do. I mean, you don't usually close an album with kind of the darkest song that you would release in your catalog. There's something about that, and then you know you look at like Nobody Wants to Die and Rapture, and I felt that it had an edge to it. But of course, you did edge towards Lightbringer. What was it about Lightbringer for you that's made you feel like this is the one?
I guess with Lightbringer, don't get me wrong, I adore both these records. I guess on the album side of it, it was that Dark Fire filled in those gaps from Lightbringer filled in the gaps of Dark Fire. And I loved the way that it almost had answers to other songs on Dark Fire. I love the fact that, you know, these are two separate releases, and we must state that. But there is a theme throughout them. There is a connection. Companion piece, you know. And I love the fact that Dark Fire opened with Mirrors, lines of Smashing the Mirrors again, and then Lightbringer closed with Mosaic.
Yeah.
And it's that's like the bookends, you know. It's like the bookends and everything's going on in the middle. And Mosaic, I think, is one of the finest songs they've ever written. Yeah. It's a fantastic song. I love the track Dark Fire itself on Lightbringer.
That's a great song.
I mean, you say about, you know, closing Dark Fire, opening a new album with a 9-minute song is pretty brave as well.
And, you know, kicking off with this acoustic section that they've never really done before, almost has a bit of a kind of almost like a bit of a Spanish feel to it. And it's like, what's going on here? You know, we haven't heard this before, and we're 9 albums deep. You know,
then just tears it wide open again, you know. I think what I loved most about Lightbringer was, although there are textures on Dark Fire, and you've got tracks like they say, like Rapture, which I adore, and that's Bird in the Hand, and these kind of softer songs that are on Dark Fighter. There is naturally, with the tonality of the title, and particularly the final track on it, there is that darker theme. There's a kind of mood throughout the whole record, and I knew it was a sister album, and I'd seen interviews, and obviously spoke to Jay when he was talking about, I can't wait for you to hear Lightbringer now, mate, because it's showing the complete opposite side and the rest of it. But it really did deliver the complete opposite side, and not necessarily in the way that I would have stereotypically thought. It wasn't just lighter songs and we'll just
do rosy.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't just the complete antithesis of Dark Fighter. It was just that different angle and those accompanying pieces, like I say, like with Mosaic and Mirrors, and they do both stand alone. This is really difficult.
It's so difficult. I think this is the hardest decision that we may have to make for like the next 10 years.
I'll go with that.
You know, I mean, I'm just glad this is the last episode of the year, because I can just retire for about 2 weeks. You know, I'm going to just live in a dark room after this. It's so difficult. I mean, one of my arguments that I did make in my top 10 was that Lightbringer has 6 tracks, and of course, Dark Fighter has, I believe, 10.
8.
Or it's a little bit more.
It's a few more tracks. Yeah,
there's certainly more, and that was kind of like my little, like, you know, maybe there's this is kind of the fine margins that we're talking about. But there's more of this one. That was it was that fine that I was just separating them via that. I really don't know who we'd go with. Well, which one we'd go with.
No. Well, either way they win. Let's put it this
Either way, Rival Sons take the crown. But I mean, do we just like put it as a tie for the first time ever, with it being the same band? I think that if this was perhaps two different artists, we'd have to reach a conclusion.
I mean, it really will be a splitting hairs between the two because they are both so good releases. And I know I went with Lightbringer to filling in the gaps and how it answered the call, so to speak, of the first of Dark Fire, the album. But can't believe I'm saying this. If Dark Fire wasn't there, as a reference point to everything that goes on,
it's like a follow-up, isn't it, Lightbringer?
Would Lightbringer have had that impact on me? Would I be making those nuances, those connections between the two and thinking this is really cool how they've done this? Yes,
this is a true point. I do feel that perhaps of the two, if you were to say one of them can exist, the other's deleted from history, I feel that Darkfire could stand on its own a little bit better. If it's on its, like, if only one existed.
I think it could. As a whole piece, definitely.
Yeah.
Say, like, this is tough.
I can just see the conflict. You're like, oh my God, I don't want to choose.
The thing is, at the end of the day, nothing's really going to change.
Rival Sons are taking this. It's the question of which one, or do we draw the line? Do we just go, you know what, first ever time? Or do we say Darkfire because it's the first one?
I think if we're going to do it, let's do it properly. I mean, if this was two different artists, why am I putting myself through this? I don't know. If it was two different artists, we'd have to do it. So
we would, yeah, we would.
But
I mean, you made a valid point on saying if one doesn't exist, and we're looking at one
bringer, obviously, but what I loved about it was the nuances and the link backs and stuff like Street Life, which could have absolutely been on Women, Head Down or something. It's fantastic, and the songs on it, Mosaic, is brilliant. Before the Fire, all that, fantastic. And again, Darkfire itself, I think, is an absolutely phenomenal track and almost acts like a bridging piece. But if Darkfire, the album, hadn't existed, then, although you can absolutely listen to it on its own, would have had the same impact. And I feel like Darkfire being the first one and the first part of the story, if we're having to choose between the two, is the one that comes out and delivers that story, delivers that impact. So maybe we go with Darkfire.
Maybe we edge it by the finest of margins that's ever occurred. But so we finally reached that conclusion. Somehow we've managed to decide that the album of the year, in the toughest of the years that we've done, somehow we've made the decision. The album of the year is Rival Sons with Darkfighter. We've made it. Everybody can breathe a sigh of relief at home, or they can tip the tables up because it wasn't an artist that didn't even make it into their list. We've got there. We made it to the end. It's been a journey this year, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
Hell of a journey. I mean, I'd just like to kind of thank everybody that's kept tuning in throughout the year. I mean, all the guests this year. I mean, this has been the most insane year for me personally. I don't know about you, Lee, but I mean, if you'd have told me at the beginning of this year that I'd have spoke with Jay Buchanan, Scott Holiday, Chris Robertson, Blackstone Cherry, speak with Anthony Gomes, who's seemingly smashed records. Cormac Neeson. I mean, you just look at this list.
Yeah.
Alan Clark from the Hollies. I mean, a legend, a man that's played with the Beatles. Insane year. So, of course, without people that tune in, none of this would be possible. I mean, at the time of this, I'll be releasing my end-of-year Spotify stats. And amazingly, I've somehow made it into the top 20%.
It's amazing. Mate.
I have no idea how. It's most likely thank you to the guests that have come in this year. Incredible. And we have a whole new audience this year. For the first time since the show's inception, America has come out on top.
Nice.
The USA are the ones. Insane. So I mean, this isn't for those that think, oh my god, he's getting self-indulgent. This is just me going like, this seems surreal. Like it's just madness this year. I don't know how next year will top it. The albums have been incredible. The guests have been incredible. I mean, you've had some amazing guests this year as well.
Again, mate, like yourself, they said to me at the top of the year, you're going to chat to Jay Buchanan twice.
Yeah.
Decent, John Corabi, Luke Morley and Thunder again. Hates Brilliant Black Spires and Chris Barras and everyone else who's come through my ranks. Over the course of the year, Andy Cairns of Therapy, another favourite one. I just don't know what happens. It's the same with Just Push Play. It's the same with the radio show.
Yeah.
I don't know how it keeps happening. I don't know. I feel like at any point in an interview or doing Just Push Play, someone's going to tap me on the shoulder and go, "Oi,
yeah,
you've had your fill. Fuck off."
Yeah.
It's insane. And at the time of this, I can say this now because I'm airing it next week, or I'm airing it this week as we record. So it'll be out there now. But I got to interview Biff Byford of Saxon this year.
Yeah.
That's just insane. And if someone told me last year, or when I started the radio,
in a year, Jay Buchanan, Biff Byford.
Yeah. And if someone said to me, you're going to get to hear albums that haven't been released yet through, obviously, because you're going to talk to these people from The Answer, Rival Sons, Saxon, Dead Daisies, I wouldn't have believed them.
I mean, for me, this was like almost going back to my childhood this year. I heard 2 Rival Sons albums in advance, Blackstone Cherry's album in advance, The Answers album in advance. I mean, just them alone would be insane for me. Like, if you'd have told me that as a kid, I'd have been like, forget it, you're joking, mate. Am I going to receive something from Atlantic Records? No chance. It's like you're having a laugh. It's just very true. I mean, I almost forgot Fito Della Para of Canned Heat, who just continues to keep getting an audience. I mean, as it currently stands, it'll be higher by the time we release this, but 14.6 thousand on YouTube, and Lord knows what number it is on Spotify. An outrageous number that I can't even remember what it is. It's ridiculously high. I believe it's higher than that. No, I don't have any words for this year. So with that, top that 2024. try. We'll give it a go. And I'm sure we'll be back in the new year with some more amazing artists, and we'll be doing more top 10s and everything. So stick with us. We'll be back, I'm sure. And we will see you next year.